Cycle Rogue is a deck that's been around for the entirety of the Great Dark Beyond metagame. In this deck, Sonya is a key player, and it was most recently nerfed as of today, the releasing of this video. Although Sonya's been now nerfed to just copy minions, you'll find in this video that Sonya still is very strong and able still to combo down your opponent quite easily. This deck uses a variety of different spells to get cycle through your deck really quickly, and in addition to Ethereal Oracle, that also is very useful for making sure that you are able to do as much as you can as quick as possible. Once you use Ethereal Oracle, you'll quite often draw into a card that you can then use as well to continue cycling. If you need to deal a large amount of damage, such as over 30 damage, you need to make sure that you have your Incindiuses and both your Shadow Steps, because that allows you to deal the extra amount that's needed. But if you don't, you can use one of the Shadow Steps for tempo throughout the game. The idea of the deck is to get to play on curve and play tempo for quite a long period of the time, and then after you've done that, you want to make sure that you're keeping control of the board while also making sure that you can get your pirate out on turn 5. If you don't get pirate out on turn 5, it's not the biggest issue, but it still isn't very important to be holding. The cards you want to mulligan for in this deck is Ethereal Oracle, Quick Pick, Dig for Treasure, and sometimes Backstab and Prep, depending on if you have Ethereal Oracle in your hand. If you're starting with the coin, it's also okay to have Prep in your hand as well, in case you get the Dubious Purchase, which is easy to activate with the Prep coin Dubious Purchase play. The idea of your initial turns is you want to try and draw through as many cards as possible. If you're playing against an aggressive deck, you do want to be making sure you have Ethereal Oracle and Backstab. Those are very key for it. Dig for Treasure is very useful to make sure that you're also getting the cards that you need. The idea of the combo turn, though, is you want to have Sonya. You also want to use the 1 mana Pirate, which then reduces down the cost of your card by 3. And you've also, at this point in time, used Incindius and then Shadow Stepped it to make it into a 4-cost minion. So once you use the reduction down by 3, it means that your Incindius is able to go to a 1-drop, and then you can combo it with the second time with Sonya. That turn, it allows you to have 30 damage going into your deck no matter what, but if you still have other eruptions in your deck, they boost and get buffed as well in that turn. If you're playing against a more aggressive archetype, you can't go for that play. The idea is to cycle through your deck as quickly as possible with Ethereal Oracle, and then using Breakdance and Shadow Step to make sure that you can get to your Giant turn, and then you want to be able to get your Giant and use Breakdance with that. You want to make sure that you're using your Tasklick effectively as well to make sure that you're getting down your minions, and you're working on how to best destroy the field and using most of your mana at the same time. What you'll notice in this gameplay footage is that I'm playing against a warrior. A lot of the warrior decks are using the control warrior archetype and the control warrior style. So I know that I have plenty of time for the most part to get my combo online. I want to make sure that I have Incindius down, and then I also want to make sure that I use the Shadow Step on my Incindius to buff it up. I've already got the Pirate in my hand that I need, so in this following turn, I'm just going to get Incindius activated and ready to go, and I'm also going to play down my Shadow Step. So right now I am trying and hoping that I do draw into my Sonya relatively soon. So you'll notice that with what I'm doing, I'm just thinking and calculating the amount of cards that I have left in my deck and what possibility I have. Because Gear Shift would be relatively decent, but since they just destroyed my Pirate, I don't want to give up the Pirate that easily, especially if they do use Hydration Station. And you'll notice right now that I just drew into Sonya. So with Sonya, I'm now just waiting for another Shadow Step, and once I have that Shadow Step, I'll be able to do the combo which gets all my eruptions to be boosted up inside the deck. and that will result in my opponent like it'll result in a lot of damage coming through. So what ends up happening here, I play down Sonya first, I then play down my pirate. After I play my pirate, I play Incindius. I then will wait for Incindius to come through, or I could Shadow Step, it doesn't matter either way. But then I need to make sure that my next play is playing down the 0 cost Incindius. I then use my pirate, I play down the next Incindius. And then I'll play down the Incindius again once it comes through. This does take quite a long time with the animation, so it's important that on this turn that you're going relatively quickly to make sure you have what you need. In this situation, I could use Gear Shift, but it wouldn't be the best play because I want to make sure that I use Ethereal Oracle to boost my amount of damage if I need to. The opponent has obviously played into this matchup before, and I think this is somewhat dodgy what ends up happening next. The opponent plays down their 4 mana card, which, their Ceaseless Expanse, then they'll play down all their other cards. And just watch what happens in terms of the way that the damage is dispersed. So they play down their Ally Advisor. Then after their Ally Advisor, they use a Zola because they want to get their cards back in hand, that's fine. But then they play down the Rockstar. So watch what happens here. So I use my, the Eruption goes off, then it hits into them, it goes off again. And at this point in time, you'd be thinking that they'd be all knocked out and gone. But because this is a continuous play, they're still drawing and getting their armor going up. So now I'm hoping that I can draw into one of my cards that stops it. And since I drew onto the speaker relatively early, I was able to take them out. But it just shows that although that combo is quite strong, there are still ways around it. It's interesting that they could continue getting that armor like they were, because that Alloy Advisor, it ended up dying plenty of turns beforehand. So it's a little bit frustrating that that's the way that can be an out for warriors, but it just is what it is. And as you see, it ends up comboing down the opponent. That in my deck, I had about 80 damage. So this game I'm going against Demon Hunter. Demon Hunter quite often is an aggressive archetype. You want to be making sure that you're mulliganing for your mulliganing quite aggressively to control the board. I kept the Tarslick here. It's not the best keep normally, but because I know that I'm playing against an aggressive archetype, I don't really want to take heaps of damage. This turn I've just passed, and I'll wait until next turn to see what I'm doing, but obviously on 3 I'm going to be playing down Ethereal Oracle. They play down both their Battle Fiends, so they're going quite aggressive. I get the backstab here, and what you'll notice here is that I do take a little bit of unnecessary damage. I could have gone, in this situation, Prep Tarslick, because Prep Tarslick would kill the 1/3 and then backstab to kill the other one, so I don't really think too much about in terms of what I'm going to be doing here, and I just pass it over to them. I could use the Ethereal Oracle Prep Tarslick, but since they've only got the 1 damage that's there, I do just hold it. Like, it is pretty much an optional decision to go with it, but yeah, I do decide just to hold. They use the Pocket Sand, and it does mean that they get an extra turn, but it means that they're also a turn that they're not doing anything either. I also, with the Pocket Sand, thought that it was just for the next turn, not the next card you played. So this following turn, I end up playing the Ethereal Oracle for 4 mana. They do get a little bit of extra damage and poke off because of that. But then I play Prep. I play down my Tarslick and hit into their aggressive minion. And I also have drawn those 2 cards as well, the Dubious Purchase and the Fan of Knives. So in terms of their setup, since they don't have very many minions on board, they still can hit quite a lot of damage coming from their hand. So they could have the Hot Coals, they could have the Acupuncture. Those sorts of things do end up dealing quite a bit of damage. So it's important, although that I do have a decent control of the board, that I am making sure that I'm doing as much as I can. I use the Prep and then Dubious Purchase here to make sure that I'm drawing more cards, because Giants is ultimately going to be my win condition in this situation. And then I quick pick a hit into them. because the Incindius is quite strong against mid-range or aggressive archetypes, but in this situation, Incindius is quite good against control and mid-range archetypes, but the Giants is what you want to be playing against for more aggressive archetypes, because then you have control of the board while also posing damage onto the opponent. So this turn I use Tasklick. I make sure I hit the Reborn one first, and then I use Fan of Knives. It doesn't really matter what I end up drawing into, because I was like, that strategy was always going to be the best way to make sure that I've cleared the board. And then I'm just making sure that I have enough cards in my hand that I won't end up overdrawing, and then I pass the turn over to the opponent. This following turn, I'm more than likely going to be playing down the Pirate, because I want to make sure that I'm keeping control and tempo of the opponent, while also making sure that I have my combo out if I need it. They end up hitting into me again, so I'm down to 14 health at this point in time. I use the Pirate first, and then I play down my Grifter. I do have ways to get it back, so I'm just going to use it, and then I'm hoping for either the Taunt or the Heal. I end up getting the Taunt, and I play the Taunt down. I then am going to Shadow Step my Grifter in case that I need to use it again throughout this game. So I pass over to the opponent, and then they'll do their turn. The Taunt also is not very useful for them either. It doesn't benefit really them in any way, because ultimately I'm just trying to hold out my turns as long as possible. They're the ones that are trying to go more aggressively. So this turn I end up getting, I'm going to be playing Grifter down again. So I play the Grifter down. I then am looking for the Heal. I find the Heal, so I play it down. And then my opponent concedes, because once you get that sort of control and also your health back up, it's not very likely that an aggressive archetype can take you. Okay, so I'm playing against a Rogue now. For the Rogue archetypes, you can either be playing against Weapon Rogue or Cycle Rogue. What I end up finding in this matchup is that I make sure that I'm mulliganing once again for the aggressive cards that I can. Quick Pick's a keep, and also I'm keeping Gear Shift in this one because I want to be making sure that I'm getting the Giants out as quick as possible. The Giants are important because once you get them out, you essentially force them into having to either deal with them or they will end up losing. So I use Gear Shift here, I draw some cards, and then I pass the turn over the opponent. I am waiting till the following turn to use Quick Pick. If in that hand I had 2 Quick Picks, I would have coined into a Quick Pick first, so then I would have drawn more cards earlier in the game. I hit with my Quick Pick and then I pass over to the opponent. So Ethereal Oracle obviously be quite useful in these sorts of situations to make sure you have what you need to. But yeah, so with that play, the Raiding Party, I'm still not 100% sure when I'm playing this game of what I'm actually playing against. So I end up thinking that it's going to be some sort of pirate version, pirate deck, obviously, since that one was the Raid the Docks. So I was thinking that it was possibly going to be one of those, one of the weapon rogues that just has a bunch of different pirates. Then once I see that combo card, I just realize that it's not actually going to be that sort of way. And then I'm thinking now that it's going to be one of those rush decks, so it actually ends up being the Spellburst deck. So I play down my my Stomper because I'm still a little bit unsure about what I'm actually going up against. But this hand, there really isn't much different that I'd be doing anyway, even if I did know exactly what I was playing against. So they end up using their backstab for 2 mana, and then they end up using their rush minion. Their rush minion does combo the extra time since they just use the spell to get it. And then now I am pretty certain of what I am actually up against. So I've end up going for the Tasklick, then the Fan of Knives. I want to make sure that I have the board cleared as much as possible, even though that they do have the charge with the Pirate, with the South Sea deckhand. So here I use Gear Shift to try and draw some more cards. I want to be making sure and trying to get out my Giants, because I know that the Giants is going to be the way that I'll more than likely control some more of the board. So they end up going into their next turn. I still am waiting also for my Shadow Steps, because Shadow Step would be quite strong in terms of taking out the, playing down the Incindius. They use some more of their like combo cards to try and deal some more damage to me, which is perfectly fine. And then I play down my Ethereal Oracle. I use prep to see what cards I end up drawing into next. I draw into a prep and a Tarslick, and then now I can play down my giants. I could go giant, giant, and then breakdance, which is what I'm end up doing. This strategy means that I've got quite a strong and solid board into going into what they end up going, whatever they end up using. Since I'm assuming now it's the Nexus deck, the one that gives buffs the spell damage minions in your hand, I do play down this board with the thought that it is going to get destroyed, but it does then slow down the opponent another extra turn. So what they end up doing is they do double coin then dubious purchase. I do get quite lucky there with them it hitting the Ethereal Oracle rather than one of my giants. And then the opponent does get up to their full amount of cards, and then they get their rush minions in here too. With how Rogue is built and designed, they have the ability to take out this board even with just what's here, because they can use the Tarslick, they can use backstab, they can use those rush minions. All those sorts of things do end up comboing down quite a lot of the deck. So right here, I am knowing that they're going to be trading quite efficiently into my deck and into my cards. So they hit all of my minions and they leave me with just a single giant. But since they use their entire turn for that, that leaves me as a very, very positive situation. I use the prep here and the dubious purchase because I could draw into my grifter, or I could draw into other things. I do end up drawing into the grifter, which is good. And then I have another dubious purchase, so I'm just deciding here whether I want to use it and draw more cards, which I end up doing. And now I've also got my Pirate and my Shadow Step in my hand, so I know that this is going to be what I need to combo them down. So I play down the Breakdance onto my Giant, I play the Giant back down, and I've got an 8-2 and 8-8 on the board. It's quite likely they can clear this with what they have in their hand, because they have the rush minions, they have charge, they also have like backstabs and things like that. So it's quite likely they will end up clearing this. But I'm once again hoping that they do end up running out of cards to deal with what they have here. The gear shift does end up having them with a decent sized hand as well. What I need to make sure, or what I'm trying to do in this turn, is I'm going to try and establish the Incindius, because Incindius means that I'll definitely be able to take them down no matter if they do end up taking control of the board. So they end up playing down their Nexus card, and then they get the spell burst obviously with prep, and they take out one of my giants. I was a little bit unfortunate with them taking out the 8-8, but that's alright. I did get very lucky with the Ethereal Oracle. Now they've got the spell burst in their hand, so it's important at this point in time that I'm trying to continue holding the board, while also making sure that they're not dealing too much damage to me. They use the breakdance and they're able to trade into my 8-2 and take me out. They use the dig for treasure here, which gets them the pirate that they need. I play down the Incindius, but in that situation, the better play more than likely would have been playing down the pirate than the Incindius. And then, because it would have meant that I kept all my mana, I used all my mana while also having the 1-drop pirate in my hand. So that's obviously a misplay that can end up happening. Even if you're a higher legend player, you do still make them. And obviously doing the review of this game, I do recognize that. I also recognize it. I recognized it when I was playing. But it ultimately, when you're working out what you need to do for following games, even in games that you do win, you do want to make sure that you are thinking about what you could have done better, or where your misplays are and things like that. So they end up playing down their minion again. They use the coin so that the buff ends up going back into their hand. It seems like they're quite frustrated at this point in time, because they're not obviously revealing what ends up happening for their turn. They use the prep, and then they will end up playing down their minion. So they're hoping once again that they end up getting what they need. They play down their rush, and then they end up playing the breakdance. So this, oh sorry, the shadow step. This ends up meaning that their hand is quite strong because they're going to get all those buffs going into their hand. But what also is important to note is that even though they have all those buffs going into their hand, not many of them land on the charge pirate. If it did, it would be problematic, but because a lot of them did land on the other minion, it means that I do have quite a strong turn going into the next turn. This turn, I am under a lot of pressure, obviously, with their quite wide board that they have. And you'll see that the eruptions are going off right now on them. So in this situation, if I had have played the giant, if I had have played the pirate down and got the miniature version, I would have been in a significantly better position because I would have been able to combo out a lot more stuff involving, because this hand is relatively decent in all honesty, but it would have been a lot stronger if I already had that pirate. But anyway, what I ended up doing in this turn is I played down the 5 mana pirate, I then played down Sonya for 1, I played down the 1 mana pirate, I then played down Incindius. I'm now waiting for Incindius to go through, and I end up getting the Incindius again. So right now I'm just deciding on how I'm going to deal with this board, because obviously Incindius can deal with that stuff that's there, but I need to be making sure that I'm not losing this following turn. So I end up going and I'm just working out what the best play is, and I do recognize that I do feel like I end up making a misplay in the situation. So I should have, in this situation, gone for the Tarslick then the Fan of Knives to make sure it's a much more likely chance of taking them out. I do end up getting it, luckily, but the risk was still there that I wouldn't end up getting what I need. Okay, so I have Shadow Step, so I take the 1/1, and I end up running out of time. If I hadn't have run out of time, I would have been able to get lethal onto the opponent, but once again, I shouldn't have just been watching all of the turns that were playing out there. Okay, so going into this matchup, I know that I'm playing against Demon Hunter, obviously. I need to make sure that I'm going quite aggressive into my giants. And I also need to make sure that I'm clearing the board quite efficiently. So I've got right now Gear Shift, Ethereal Oracle, and Quick Pick. I don't really have any sort of play that I want to do here. I do draw into another Gear Shift, but Ethereal Oracle is very important in this matchup, and it's very important in most of the matchups that you have, so I don't really want to shuffle that away, even though it would make it so I have an extra 3 cards going into the giant pool. If it was against Death Knight, it's possible that I would do it to shuffle away, just because with Death Knight they have Helya, which can become quite problematic in terms of being able to take out your opponent. This turn I end up playing Quick Pick. It's quite obvious what to do. Next turn is playing down Ethereal Oracle, more than likely. But since they have the Shadow card, I don't have a way to take it out, so I just hit with the Quick Pick first, see what I end up drawing into, and I don't end up playing anything down because I don't have a way to proc the Ethereal Oracle. I could have played down the Ethereal Oracle for tempo, but it's very easy that they'd be able to take it out, and it's clear on board that they have enough damage on board to be able to take out my Ethereal Oracle. So going into the following turn, I have an Ethereal Oracle play. I'm hoping for a prep, but or a Tarslick. If I don't end up drawing it, it's not the end of the world, obviously, but I have the backstab too. So Ethereal Oracle, backstab, hit into the 0/3, it gets rid of some of their damage. It also draws me some cards. I get Shadow Step and I get backstab, which is fantastic for the following turn. I Shadow Step back my Ethereal Oracle, and then I shuffle my cards back into my deck with Gear Shift. So right here, I'm making sure that I'm cycling through as quick as possible, while also making sure that I end up getting what I need. It's important as well in this situation that I'm making sure that it's great in this situation that I used Ethereal Oracle and used the Shadow Step on it, because it means that I'll be able to get more cards once again with it, obviously, but also so then I can make sure that I'm drawing more of the cards that are needed. Its Ethereal Oracle is very strong into aggressive cards as well because you have backstab, you have Fan of Knives, you have Task, like all those different things take out the opponent's minions quite easily. So they end up using acupuncture. They end up using uh their their card that gets the crewmates. So it is quite a challenging situation to be in. I could play down the pirate in this situation and then down the Ethereal Oracle. I do think that that possibly is a misplay going for that sort of action, but I'm also at this point in time thinking of playing down the Stomper to try and protect myself from the opponent. That's the reason why that I kept that down. I also do have the Giant, which is down to 6 mana at this point in time, and because I'm trying to buff that up as well. Grifter obviously is a very good pull here. I use Dig for Treasure to try and get another card. Um, I do end up keeping the Stomper. I could have shuffled it away, and it would have meant that I would have been able to do a combo, but I didn't really want to, just because it's possible that I may end up needing it. A play that I couldn't also have done the breakdance. It wouldn't have been too beneficial because my Giant wasn't free that turn. It still costs some mana. So the best play for that turn was to make sure that I just had the Giant down on board. The Stomper obviously would have been decent for any spells that they could have played, and that's the reason why I didn't trade it away. If they use Hot Coals or any of those other sorts of buffs and things like that, it is something that can deal quite a bit of damage. They can also use the Metamorphosis to get their hero power quite strong as well. And you'll notice that I'm down quite a lot of health. So I'm this following turn hoping that I get the. I'm going to use the Sandbox and I'm going to use the Grifter because I need to make sure that I'm keeping myself safe from my keep myself safe from my opponent's like ability to take me out. The Sandbox here allows me to play Grifter, and once I use the Grifter, or I'm also thinking Stomper, either one could work in this relatively decent in this situation. I'm wanting the heal or the taunt. I end up getting the heal, so I use prep and I use the heal. I am also deciding whether to shadow step it or not, because if I shadow step the Grifter, it means that I can get a taunt or I can get another of the heal. So I end up shadow stepping the Grifter to make sure that I've got what I need. Next turn, my Giant will be back live, and I'll be able to use the breakdance on the Giant. The following turn, they still do have quite a lot of health, but I'm back up to 21 since I got that extra 12 health through the Grifter. They're able to use the healing potion, unlike the taunt one, because they can use Hot Coals the following turn as well, which means that they do end up taking damage because they heal 12 then take 6, and then they can use that to deal the extra damage with Hot Coals into me. So that's an important consideration when doing the Grifter play with the heal. But in that situation, I really did need to make sure that I had the heal, because otherwise they'd end up being able to combo me down. They are using the minion that allows you to get extra hero powers off, so it's important as well that I'm taking out that 1/4 because I don't want to be dealing with that in the following turns. So once again, I'm back down to 13 health. I do have Grifter, so I want to be using that. I want to be once again hoping for the heal or the taunt. So there's two options which are being relatively decent there. I get the heal, which is the better of the two, and then I use I trade into the stealth minion, the spirit, and then I draw a card with the dig for treasure, and I get my Giants back down onto the board. I could in this situation use the mini and then get the Stomper, but I don't really want to because I do have quite a lot on board at the moment that's useful, and I don't really want to be using up my Stomper this turn because it would end up guaranteeing me. It wouldn't have been terrible doing the Stomper that turn. Because if I had done the Stomper, it means that they still could have done the Hot Coals, but they wouldn't have been able to do the heal thing as well. And I have enough damage sitting on board at the moment to be able to take them out. So, they're obviously thinking about how best to try and combo me down and take me out. They don't really have too much I don't think that can deal that sort of amount of damage because I'm back up to 25. Yeah, so it's not too much of a concern for me with whatever they end up doing because once again they're using an aggressive archetype. It's turn 7 and I have the much more established board. So they end up doing the heal, they take the damage. That turn this turn I could have used a stomper. It would have obviously been a lot more beneficial for this because it meant that they wouldn't have been able to take out most of my board, but it also would have meant that there was no real way that they could have, well, they couldn't have done that hot calls play. So they end up not trading here, which is fine by me because I end up having 20 damage that's sitting on my board. I do have the Sonya play, so I'm just going to play it safe. I use Sonya, I use the mini pirate, I then play down my stomper, I play down the second stomper. And that puts their cards of their spells up a lot more, so there's now absolutely no chance that they can really end up taking me out because all their spells are costing 4 extra. So they can't use they can use the heal, but it won't really do too much, especially with this board that's here. And they could use hot coals, which would deal 2 damage to my board if they have it, but my minions end up having enough health to be able to deal with them. Okay, so thank you for watching today. I hope that you've enjoyed. Obviously, this shows that this deck is still very viable.